Have you ever experienced this? Someone was a part of your life. Not just casually, but deeply. You talked almost every day. Shared small things, random thoughts, inside jokes, moments that felt real. And for a while, it felt like they were always going to be there. There was no sign of distance. No warning. No clear change. Everything felt normal. Until it didn't. One day, they just stopped. No messages. No explanation. No goodbye. At first, you don't even understand what's happening. You check your phone again and again, thinking maybe they're busy. Maybe something happened. Maybe they'll text later. But they don't. Hours turn into days. Days turn into silence. And slowly, a question starts growing inside your mind. Why? Why would someone who was so present in your life suddenly disappear? Like you meant nothing. And the worst part is, you don't even get a reason. No closure. No explanation. No final conversation. Just silence. And that silence is louder than anything they could have said. At first, you try to stay calm. You tell yourself, they're probably just busy. Maybe they need space. Maybe I'm overthinking. But deep inside, you know something feels different. Because this silence doesn't feel normal. It feels intentional. And that's when your mind starts searching for answers. You go back to your last conversation. You read every message again. Line by line. Word by word. Trying to find something you missed. Was there a change in their tone? Did they sound different? Did you say something wrong? You start analyzing things that you never even questioned before. A simple message suddenly feels important. A small reply feels like a hidden signal. And now, your mind won't stop. It keeps replaying everything. What if I said something wrong? What if I hurt them without realizing? What if they just got tired of me? And slowly, those thoughts start turning into beliefs. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe they found someone better. Even if none of that is true, your mind starts accepting it. Because your brain hates uncertainty. It would rather believe something painful than accept not knowing at all. And that's the trap. Because now, you are not just dealing with their absence. You are dealing with your own thoughts. And those thoughts don't give you peace. They keep pulling you back. Again and again. Into the same loop. You try to distract yourself. You try to move on. You tell yourself, it doesn't matter. But it does. Because it wasn't just a person. It was a connection. And now, that connection feels unfinished. Like a story that suddenly stopped in the middle. No ending. No explanation. No closure. And your mind doesn't know how to accept that. But here's something most people don't understand. Not everyone knows how to communicate. Some people don't know how to explain what they feel. And when emotions get uncomfortable, they don't express them. They avoid them. For them, silence is easier than honesty. Because explaining something means facing it. And facing it feels uncomfortable. So instead of saying, I'm not feeling the same anymore, or I need space. Or even, I don't want to continue this. They disappear. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the easiest thing to do. Avoidance is not about you. It's about their inability to deal with difficult emotions. Imagine this. Someone feels confused, or overwhelmed, or unsure about the connection. They know something has changed inside them, but they don't know how to say it. They don't want conflict. They don't want questions. They don't want to hurt you or deal with your reaction. So instead, they choose silence. They slowly pull back. They reply less. They become distant. And then one day, they just stop. From your side, it feels sudden. But from their side, it was a slow withdrawal. People who avoid communication often choose disappearance over explanation because you didn't see it coming. You were still showing up, still talking, still being present, and suddenly, they were gone. And now your mind tries to understand something that was never clearly expressed. Which is why you feel stuck. But avoidance is not the only reason. Sometimes, the real reason is deeper. Not everyone has the emotional maturity to handle relationships properly. Some people don't understand their own feelings. They don't know what they want. They don't know how they feel. And most importantly, they don't know how to express it. At one point, they feel close to you. They enjoy your presence. They talk. They connect. Everything feels real. But inside, they are confused. Their feelings are not stable. And when that confusion increases, instead of communicating, they shut down. Because explaining confusion requires clarity, and they don't have that clarity. So instead of saying, I don't understand my feelings, or I'm not sure what I want, they choose silence. For emotionally immature people, silence feels safer than honesty. Imagine someone who starts feeling distant, but they don't know why. They don't sit with that feeling. They don't process it. They don't communicate it. They just pull away, slowly, quietly, without explanation. From your side, it feels confusing, because nothing wrong happened. There was no fight, no clear problem. Everything seemed fine. And then suddenly, they were gone. Emotionally immature people don't end things clearly. They disappear because you don't get a reason. And without a reason, your mind keeps searching, trying to understand something that they themselves never understood. Which brings you back to the same question. Why did they leave? But sometimes, it's not about you. And it's not even about the relationship. Sometimes, it's about what they are going through internally. People don't always show what they feel. On the outside, they can look normal. They can talk, laugh, act like everything is fine. But inside, they might be dealing with something heavy. Stress, anxiety, confusion, emotional burnout, things they don't even know how to explain. And when it becomes too much, they start withdrawing, not just from you, but from everyone. They stop replying. They stop engaging. They stop showing up. Because even basic communication feels exhausting. Imagine this. Someone is mentally overwhelmed. They don't have the energy to explain their situation. They don't want to answer questions like, "What happened? Are you okay? Why are you acting different?" Because they don't have clear answers. So instead of explaining something confusing, they choose silence. Sometimes people disappear, not because they don't care, but because they don't have the capacity. But from your side, it feels personal. It feels like rejection, because you only see the silence, not the struggle behind it. Because earlier, they were present, they talked, they connected, they showed interest. So when they suddenly pull away, it doesn't make sense. Your brain tries to connect both versions of them. The person who cared, and the person who disappeared. But it can't match them. Sometimes, people don't leave because of you. They leave because they are lost within themselves. This doesn't make it easier for you, because you are still left with questions and silence. And once again, your mind goes back to the same loop. Why did they leave? And then, there is a reason that most people don't want to accept. Sometimes, people leave because they simply lose interest. No big reason, no dramatic event, just a slow change in how they feel. At one point, they were interested. They enjoyed talking to you. They felt connected. But over time, something changed. Maybe their feelings faded. Maybe the excitement reduced. Maybe they found something else that caught their attention. But instead of being honest, they choose the easier path: silence. Because saying, "I'm not interested anymore," feels uncomfortable. It feels harsh. It feels difficult. So they avoid it. Not everyone has the courage to end things honestly. So they disappear, hoping you will understand, without them having to say anything. From your side, this feels unfair, because you deserved clarity. You deserved a conversation. You deserved the truth. But instead, you got silence. Because your mind keeps asking, "What changed?" And you try to find a reason that makes sense. But the truth is, sometimes there is no deep explanation. Feelings change, and not everyone knows how to communicate that change. Sometimes people don't leave because you did something wrong. They leave because they stopped feeling the same. And that's painful to accept, because it has nothing to do with logic. It's just how they feel. And once again, you are left with silence and unanswered questions. But something changes the moment you stop searching for answers outside and start looking within. You begin to notice what this situation is actually doing to you. Not just the silence, but the effect of that silence. You realize that you are not just hurt because they left. You are hurt because you don't understand why. It's not always the ending that breaks you. It's the lack of explanation. And the moment you see this, something starts to shift inside you. You stop asking, "Why did they leave me?" And you start asking, "Why am I still holding on?" You begin to notice how your mind keeps going back to the same thoughts, replaying, analyzing, searching, trying to find closure in something that never gave you one. Closure is not always given. Sometimes it has to be created. And this is where you slowly take your power back. Not by understanding them, but by understanding yourself. You stop chasing answers that were never meant to come. You stop blaming yourself for something you didn't control. And slowly, your mind starts calming down. Not because everything is clear, but because you stopped forcing clarity. Because now, you are not feeding the loop anymore. You are observing it. And that changes everything. So the question is, what do you actually do when someone suddenly disappears from your life? Most people try to find answers. They overthink. They replay everything. They blame themselves. Or worse, they try to reach out again and again, hoping for a response. But that usually makes it harder. Because the more you chase, the more you feel ignored. And the more you feel ignored, the more it hurts. You cannot force someone to explain what they chose to hide. Instead of chasing answers, you need to change your focus. The first step is acceptance. Not understanding, but accepting. Accept that they chose silence, and that silence is already an answer. No response is also a response. Brain step 2. Stop blaming yourself. Your mind will try to make it your fault. But remind yourself, you are only responsible for what you did knowingly, not for what someone else failed to communicate. Seedling step 3. Stop replaying. Every time you go back to old conversations, you reopen the same wound. So instead, gently bring your focus back. Not forcefully, but consciously. Person in lotus position step 4. Give yourself closure. If they didn't give you closure, you create it. Tell yourself, they chose to leave without explanation. And that tells me everything I need to know. Closure doesn't always come from them. Sometimes it comes from your decision to move on. Bullseye step 5. Shift your energy. Instead of focusing on their absence, focus on your presence, your life, your growth, your peace. And slowly, the weight starts to feel lighter. Not because you got answers, but because you stopped needing them. Sometimes, people leave without explanation. Not because you didn't matter. Not because you weren't enough. But because they didn't know how to stay. And once you understand that, something inside you softens. You stop seeing their silence as your failure, and start seeing it as their limitation. You realize, not everyone you meet is meant to stay in your life. Some people are just a chapter, not the whole story. And sometimes, the way they leave tells you more about them than anything they ever said. Yes, it hurts. It hurts to not know why. It hurts to not get closure. But slowly, you learn something important. You learn that you don't need an explanation to move forward. You don't need their words to find your peace. Because your peace should never depend on someone else's clarity. And one day, you stop asking, why did they leave? And you start saying, it's okay that they did. Not with anger, not with resentment, but with acceptance. Because at the end of the day, the right people don't leave you confused. They don't leave you questioning your worth. They don't leave you in silence. So the next time someone disappears from your life without explanation, remember this. They didn't give you closure because they couldn't. And that says everything you needed to know.